Welcome to Copilot Podcasts. Right now, as you're listening to this, termites could be silently eating your house from the inside out. You'd never know until the walls collapse. Today, we're diving into Emilokon, the Fable of the Termites, a political allegory that uses this exact metaphor to expose how power structures decay from within. We'll unpack the brilliant symbolism, explore why termites make the perfect metaphor for corruption, and discover how this fable connects to real-world political discourse. By the end, you'll see how literature can reveal uncomfortable truths about leadership and why sometimes the most dangerous threats are the ones you can't see.
Let me hand this over to someone who's been studying the intricate layers of this work.
So, Emilokon, written by Joe Barnabas, is this fascinating political satire that came out in 2026. According to the iPost review, it's not just a story, it's described as a mirror held up to the face of modern leadership and the systemic termites that hollow out the foundations of our shared home.
That phrase, hollow out the foundations, is so vivid. What makes the termite metaphor so powerful here?
It's brilliant because termites consume from the inside out, often unnoticed until the structure collapses. The review notes this serves as a hauntingly familiar representation of the creeping greed and administrative decay currently plaguing our world. It's not dramatic external warfare, it's invisible, systemic destruction.
So we're talking about corruption that's almost architectural in nature?
Exactly. The book spans 36 chapters, and the review describes it as feeling like an architectural blueprint of a revolution. Barnabas doesn't rush the descent into chaos. He lets you feel the wood grain of the society before the first bite is even taken.
That's such a deliberate pacing. What does the actual kingdom in the fable look like?
It's called the Kingdom of Pretense, built on shifting sands of vanity. The royal household mirrors different faces of a failing state. There's Kabiyesi, the unshakable, who sits on a throne of silence, leadership that watches foundations crumble but refuses to speak.
A throne of silence? That's chilling. What about the other characters?
The queen manages what's called the theater of deception, using endless gifts and public donations to mask systemic lack of genuine care. Then you have the prince and princess representing the hollowing out of the future. Their shining cities and market empires are revealed as facades already infested with termites of greed.
So even the next generation is compromised. That's pretty dark.
And it gets more complex. In Chapter 6, the fable introduces grasshoppers and locusts representing externalized violence. Unlike termites who eat from within, these creatures destroy the very mounds where people live, forcing them into flight. It's a direct allegory for real-world clashes and terrorism.
So you have internal decay and external threats working together?
Right. And there's this haunting anthem that runs through the fable. The termites chant, "We dig, we rise, we starve, we rise, we fall, we rise again." The review calls it the heartbeat of the old order.
That chant is almost hypnotic. It reminds me of how persistent corruption can be.
And here's something fascinating. This termite metaphor isn't unique to Emilokon. There's actually academic research on what's called the termitan metaphor in literature. A 2025 study from Adeleke University analyzed how poets use termites to represent destructive human agents in Nigeria's socio-political landscape.
Wait, so this is a broader literary trend?
Absolutely. The study looked at Folorunsho Ladapo's collection Termites on the Prowl and found that termite metaphors are used to express themes of moral decay, corruption, and social disintegration. The researchers noted these create a distinctive termitan visual structure in poetry.
And this connects to real political discourse too, doesn't it? I'm thinking about that Emilokon phrase.
Great connection. There's actually scholarly research on Emilokon from Ekiti State University. The phrase, meaning "it's my turn," was used in Nigerian politics, and researchers found it reflected ideologies of entitlement and power negotiation. The title, Emilokon, clearly plays on this.
So the title itself is loaded with political meaning about entitlement?
Exactly. According to the iPost review, the title Emilokon carries the weight of entitlement and historical destiny. It's this sense of my turn that often drives the very corruption the termites represent.
That's such a clever literary move. Now, you mentioned architecture earlier. Is there a deeper connection there?
There's actually fascinating research on this. A 2024 book from Routledge called On Power in Architecture explores how architecture has always been a decisive manifestation of power. The scholars examine how power becomes represented in architectural form.
So when we talk about termites eating the foundation, we're really talking about power structures?
Precisely. Cambridge research on representations of power in architecture shows how buildings can reproduce memories of fear and conflict. One study found that in Belfast, ground floor facades are mainly solid and disengaging, architecture literally embodying political division.
That's incredible. So physical structures mirror political ones.
And the research warns about what they call the misuse of the silent power of form. Poor architectural form makes people feel poor. Ill-conceived form makes them feel ill. It's described as one of the greatest threats to cities because it goes unnoticed by most.
Just like termites, the damage happens silently until it's too late.
Exactly. And this brings us to why fables are so effective for this kind of critique. Research from the ACL anthology shows that fables are more cognitively demanding than regular stories because readers need to figure out both the narrative and the moral lesson.
So our brains are working harder when we read fables?
Right. The research notes that fables are often semantically deep, despite their apparently simple structures. The same fable can be retold different ways, but the moral remains constant. It's this layered meaning that makes them perfect for political commentary.
And Emilokon seems to be following in that tradition of political allegory, like Animal Farm.
The Amazon description actually compares it to Animal Farm, saying it blends philosophical depth with modern biting wit. It asks those uncomfortable questions we often avoid. What happens when the pillars of power are hollowed out by greed?
Those are the questions that make people uncomfortable but need to be asked.
And there's historical precedent for this. Research on John Dryden's political allegories shows how satirical representation functions as a political weapon. Dryden used biblical allegory to dramatize contemporary political conflicts, just like Barnabas uses termites.
So allegory has always been a way to critique power safely?
Exactly. The research on Dryden shows how allegory serves a dual role as both literary art and political propaganda. By using metaphors and symbols, authors can make pointed critiques while maintaining some distance from direct political attack.
And the termite metaphor is particularly brilliant because it's so relatable. Everyone knows what termite damage looks like.
That's what makes it so effective. The iPost review notes that by the final chapters of Emilokon, the sense of dry rot is palpable. Readers can almost feel the structural weakness, the inevitable collapse.
It's visceral in a way that abstract political theory isn't.
And the book asks whether a structure can survive when those tasked with its protection are the very ones eating it away. That's the central paradox of corruption. The guardians become the destroyers.
That paradox is what makes this so unsettling. The call is coming from inside the house, literally.
The Amazon description ends with this haunting question. The wood is dry. The feast has begun. Are you watching the walls? It's asking readers to become aware of the signs of decay around them.
That's such a powerful call to vigilance. But it also suggests the damage might already be underway.
Which brings us back to why this metaphor resonates so strongly. Unlike dramatic external threats, termite damage is gradual, invisible, and by the time you notice it, significant structural damage has already occurred.
And that's probably why the termite metaphor keeps appearing in political literature. It captures something essential about how corruption actually works.
Exactly. The research on termitan metaphors shows they're particularly effective for expressing social disintegration because they represent persistent, systematic destruction rather than sudden catastrophic events.
So when we step back from all this, what does Emilokon really teach us about power and its vulnerabilities?
It reveals that the greatest threats to any system often come from within, from those who benefit from the system but gradually hollow it out for personal gain. The fable format makes this abstract concept tangible and urgent.
And it shows how literature can make us see familiar political problems in completely new ways. The termite metaphor reframes corruption from a moral failing to a structural threat.
That's the power of effective allegory. It doesn't just describe problems, it helps us understand them differently. And understanding is the first step toward recognition and, potentially, prevention.
Which brings us back to that final question from the book. Are you watching the walls? Because now, after understanding this metaphor, we might actually know what to look for.
Exactly. The fable gives us a framework for recognizing the signs of institutional decay before the collapse becomes inevitable. That's the real gift of this kind of political literature.
And maybe that's why termites make such perfect political metaphors. They force us to think about prevention rather than just reaction. Thanks for joining us on Copilot Podcasts. The next time you hear about corruption or institutional failure, you might find yourself thinking about termites. And that's exactly the point.